And tonight is going to be the start of our Megascope series, which I'm so excited about. So I'm gonna ask you to start and just like give everybody a little bit of context on why we started this Megascope series and just like how important it is to us and like the beginning of Pink Riot.
Yeah. So that's like nuts to say. So for one,
Right.
I would be remiss not to say that this is literally like the peak of the start of our Delulu really taking root and taking effect and taking us where we want Pink Riot to go, because the origins of Pink Riot is really like our friendship. So obviously it's like built on that, which I love. But our friendship was built on our equal love, respect, and admiration for Black storytelling, specifically in comics. And you can't really have or appreciate an Afrofuturist lens if you can't appreciate where you came from. So it's important to look both ways. And Megascope, that's literally what it was founded on. The concept of Megascope was coined by, was it W.E.B. Du Bois?
W.E.B. Du Bois, yeah.
Yeah, and his concept of this device that allowed you to look forward and look backward at our experience. And so it's just like coming across those stories and then finding out that that's what the origin was for Megascope was really just mind-boggling. I'm pretty sure you know about it before I did, but it's funny that like we both had different comic book origin stories, but kind of found ourselves leaning towards the same stories anyway, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously its founder, the John Jennings, is the founder of this whole Megascope concept within Abrams Comics Art. And my first introduction to him was a chat that he was doing virtually with Nalo Hopkinson
Oh,
about
yeah.
Afrofuturism. And he spoke about that whole thing, and it really just catapulted my curiosity about what I'm reading and what it's really trying to say and where I'm going with it. So y'all should see, like, you see us Kiki, but y'all should see Keisha like really get in her blurred library bag and wax poetic about like what, what our futures could look like if people had the right access, the right education, the right resources, the right community. And I just remember her like,
Small plug, go to the website,
facts.
theblurlibrary.com.
Literally, actually check her out. Like, not even a small plug, shameless plug. Like, pull up because she's doing the work over there in a number of ways. But seeing that come from her was really when I went like, wow, like not only do I look at her as a friend, but I admire her as a scholar. And it made me want to change the way that I approach reading and enjoying media in general. And then when she was like, not about that obviously, but reciprocated the appreciation for my vibes, it was like, we should just
We should do
and
this.
we should do this, we should make this a thing. So yeah, it's crazy that Megascope has its origins in us becoming this version of Pink Right that you see today. So when we decided to actually do this for real, that was one of the first ideas that we had, like, yo, we have to be a part of what they're doing over there. And we both
Yeah.
are so passionate about it. We feel like we could be like good representation or faces of the brand to help get it to where it belongs. Cause right now it's like one of the most slept on gems in
It
comics right now.
is not enough folks are paying attention to the stories that are on this imprint, and
Yeah.
they've all been bangers. Every last one has been
Every last one.
bangers.
Yeah.
And so just to like piggyback off of what you're saying, like we want everybody to just see the greatness that's coming from this imprint and just see how important it is for our community and for everyone to pay attention to these stories,
Yeah.
because now more than ever we're in a space, we're in a time where we need folks to understand what has happened in past, see the patterns, and then as you figure out your role in the revolution, like if you need to, if you can just reimagine new worlds, it's going to take, these kinds of stories to reimagine what we can do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
even if your role is just sharing these stories, you know what I'm saying? Putting it in as many people's hands as possible. So, we're out here doing our part. But we pitched this idea of working with these creators to John Jennings, and he has been just a gem and really like a springboard for Pink Riot to like grow and build as a whole. And he's believed in us from the jump. So
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "Oh yeah, I support this, what you're doing. How can I get involved?" And now here we are. So we reached out to all of the creators who have contributed to their respective Megascope titles, and we will be bringing them to you live on the Pink Riot Comic Show to share about their respective titles and kiki with us a little bit so we can build community and spread the word about these titles and hopefully get y'all to read some really cool stories, because outside of all of that mission, like Keisha was saying, not a single one has been amiss. So we're excited to get these in your guys' hands and libraries and have you requesting them at your libraries.
My expectation is that everyone has the same set that we have, which is the entire line.
Yeah.
The entire line. Okay.
Yeah.
That is
Because
my expectation.
these are some smexy hardcovers, but we will talk more about that. We like got to get these folks in here because we got special guests waiting in the wings. Our
Yes.
first guests are the creators of Across the Tracks. Like, what an iconic title to start with. Like, what are we even talking about? So let's get them on in here, guys.
We're gonna welcome to the show, Alverne Ball and Stacey Robinson. How are y'all doing tonight?
I'm beautiful, so thank you for asking.
Yes.
Yeah, great. I'm doing wonderful. What a wonderful intro. Thank you for that. that was beautiful.
Oh,
And
thank
you.
before we get started, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna need me a Pink Riot hoodie.
Oh, absolutely.
Hey.
Absolutely. You ready to riot? We got you.
Yes.
Yeah, I need that to go with my mustard scarf or get my color theory on. Yeah.
Period. Oh,
Yeah.
yellow. We got the yellow one rocking. So if that's your vibe, period.
Okay. All right.
That's what's up. Yeah, no, we're so excited to have you guys here. Especially like to kick things off, because this was actually the first Megascope title that I read. It was gifted to me by Abrams Comic Arts, and I have bought this now 8 times because I got a lot. Actually, I have nieces and nephews. I have other people when I've done giveaways and stuff where it's like, oh, how can I get into comics? It's like, well, what are you into? It's like, oh, you actually don't matter what you're into. You're black. This is one of the ones you get. You know what I mean? So yeah, and I love it. It's awesome because it's like it's not it's easily digestible, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's entertaining. The art style is provocative. It gives you like a little bit of everything, and it's not preachy. It makes you feel like you're a part of this community, whether you really are or you aren't. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah. It's really and truly well done. But before we get into the specifics about the title, we're so happy to have you here. And one thing that we love to do with all of our Pink Riot guests is to hear from you. What was your comic book origin story? So we kind of just gave y'all a peek into what our Pink Riot comic show origin story, like how did it come about? How did we get together? So I want to hear from you. What was your personal origin story getting into enjoying and reading comics, and also what was your origin story getting into and creating comics?
You want to go first, or would you like me to go
Whoever
first,
wants to
Stacey?
go first, so I'm not picking on anybody.
Right.
I'll go first.
We'll go in alphabetical order. How about that, Alverne?
Nice.
All right. So, how I started, I guess, how I got into comics. I used to have to take, used to go to this very magnet school, up north in Chicago called Whitney Young, and I used to have to take like 3 buses to get there or whatever. But I remember one day I missed the bus, and I used to see these comic shops. Um, every time we get off, as I'm passing. And one day I missed the bus and decided I'd walk. And I started walking by a comic shop. And I decided I was going to go in. And I went in and kind of just got hooked. But But before that, I should say, I walked into a Toys R Us because it was a Toys R Us like right down the street, and I had picked up this action figure which was by McFarlane Toys. It was a Spawn figure, and I flipped it over and it said based on the comic book, and I wait, there's a comic book with these awesome characters in it. And I was like, and so I had to find this comic shop, and I went in and I asked them for Spawn, and they gave me like whatever issue it was. And then from there, the guys that were in the comic shop kind of opened me up to all this other stuff. And it was right as Cliffhanger was coming out. So I was like just instantly hooked. And I was like, okay, I gotta read comics. And I read them secretly for a very, very long time.
Not the secret blurting,
right?
crazy.
Yeah.
But it be's like that though. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just saying it be's like that. I love that your introduction was something like, I just want to play. I'm interested in this. And we literally were just talking about, well, Keisha was mentioning how she was talking with the person at her comic shop about how it's difficult to hop into the story. So that's crazy that they literally like, here's the latest issue. Like, I'm sure it wasn't an issue 1 and you just were like, yeah, let's get into it. Let's get active.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like the comic shop owners are, you know, a moment ago, like Bree, you were singing the theme song, the Cheers, right? Yeah. Everybody knows your name. You know, they're always glad you came, right? The comic shop owners are like that. They're in many ways, they're like our therapist, like seriously, right? Like, and for me, that was that kind of is my origin story. My first love is animation, which is actually something I'm just getting back into. Yes. And I was introduced to comics by my uncle, who is about 5 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. And so I would always go in, I would look at his comic books. I lived with my grandparents for a year, so I was reading his comic books. And when my mom and I moved away from there, he gave me a stack of comic books. And those were my intro to comics. But I remember talking about the comic shop owner being your therapist, right? Or the person you can confide in. Yeah. When I wanted to draw comics. Ever since I got comics, I wanted to draw comics.
Yes.
And we're talking about like age 10 or so. I think I wanted to draw comics. And I remember I got it in my head one day as like, this was probably around age 15 or 16, that there were no Black comic book artists. And I remember going into the comic shop depressed. Oh. And this is Earthworld Comics, Albany, New York. Shouts out to my man JC, the comic shop owner. He has passed away a few years ago, but I love like telling this story. And I remember like walking into the store, and he's like, "Stacey, what's wrong?" You know, I was depressed. I was just like, I just was looking down. He's like, "Stacey, what's wrong? I never see you like this." And I'm running through a scenario in my head. I'm like, am I going to tell this white guy, you know, he was like, is he going to care? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he might find out something real quick. Yeah.
Right.
But here's the thing. I did tell him. I was like, you know, JC, I was like, I want to draw comics. He's like, but there are no Black comic book artists. He was like, dude, what are you talking about? He was like, do you know who Mark Bright is? I was like, yeah, he drew Iron Man. He's working on Emerald Dawn. Yeah, I know Mark. He's my favorite comic book artist. He was like, did you know he's Black?
Oh, I love that.
30 seconds, this man changed my life. And I have, you know, since then, I have lived an amazing life. As an illustrator, as a professor, honestly, I haven't drawn enough comics, right? Not enough comics, but that man changed my life because he took the opportunity to tell me something he did not have to tell me, right?
Right.
Me trusting in him and telling him my problems of the day, right? And him taking a moment, right? Knowing my name, being glad that I came, right? All of those things. And he changed my life because he took a moment to care about planting that seed in my life, right? So that's kind of my origin story in part.
Ooh,
I
Um,
love
that is
that.
peak. That is so peak.
I love
I love
that
that
because
too. Yeah.
yeah, like he was able to, especially something race related. Like typically, a lot of folks, a lot of us walk into comic shops not always feeling welcoming, and for him to like do that for you
true.
is beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Shouts out to JC. Shouts out to Earth World Comics, Albany, New York.
Also,
That's
shout
dope.
out to that original creator because that's just another peak example of how representation is so important because you
Yes.
went from like being down about it. And I love that your initial thought was like, well, I want to do this, but nobody else did it. So you were already like had it in your mind. This is something that I want to do. It just didn't feel as tangible. And then you find out one of your favorite artists is also black, and then that like probably boosted you like a solid 80% to yeah, I can do this, like because I've
I
seen it.
bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can you imagine? Like, and I'll be honest, I have no idea how I got that thought in my head. But as we're talking about representation, right? Because we're going to talk about that tonight, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And why representation matters. So when you would see comic book artists in the back of certain comic books, at least in my day, there were very few comic book artists, and the pictures that you saw, none of them were black that I saw, right? So
Mhm.
if you don't see it, you are left to assume that it does not exist,
Yeah.
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
because if it did exist, why would they not show that? Like, we trust our media, right? We trust. Why would our government lie to us? Why would our media lie to us,
Oh,
right? We
that is
trust
a
it,
question, right?
And to
right? We
anybody
trust it
asking that
until we
question, I'm
learn
like,
not to.
let me give you this.
Right.
Yeah, like we trust our parents. Our parents told us Santa Claus existed, Tooth Fairy existed, right? We trust them, and then our hearts get broken when we learn differently, right?
And
So
we
it's like
find the toys in the closet. Yep.
yeah, we trust by default. So shouts out to those people who are honest in our lives.
Yeah.
I'm done talking. This isn't my interview. I'm sorry. I'm not
That's
hosting the show.
no, you guys are doing great. Literally, the whole
Yeah.
goal of asking about the origin stories to hear
Yeah.
these type of stories. When we've learned across the interviews that we've done so far, nobody's stories are exactly the same. They may like start with the same sort of core, but the way that like the passion or the interest bloom usually sprouts from something else. So that's why we love to ask that question. And so now that we've heard your origin of like how you got into comics, what was your origin story that got you into creating comics?
Whew. I think it had for me how I came about comics was that I probably read them for about a year. Again, I got into comics very late. I got into them when I was about 16 years old.
Oh,
So
is that
I
late?
read them.
Oh, that's
For,
not
yeah,
late.
very late.
Right? Like,
That's
no,
nah, that's
you're
not.
doing great.
Yeah.
So I got into them and I read them for about a year. And after a year, I decided I think I can write these. I've been reading them enough. I think I can write them. And then at the time, there were no how-to books. There were no, there was no the internet was just really taking off, and so there was no repository for how to do this thing. And so I just decided to one day pick the, I've always told stories, but I just decided I was looking through a comic and I would literally analyze every page. I counted every word bubble and every until I had it down to a science. And then I told a friend, I think I'm going to write a comic. And I just started writing it and trying to figure out how to do it. And I think what inspired me, there was this book that had come out around the same time where I don't know who it was released by, but it had interviewed like Todd McFarlane, Garth Ennis, Mark Silvestri, like all the guys at
Mm.
Image kind of thing who were hot at the time. And one of the things that had captured me was that Garth Ennis talked about his writing process and about how he wrote and how he did these outlines and the margins of the notebooks. And when I opened my notebooks, I had been doing that even before I knew it. And so I was like, oh my God, he does the same thing. And I was like, okay, I gotta write, I gotta write a comic. And the first comic I wrote was based on a story that my mother told me when I was like 6 years old about the fall of Lucifer. And that became like the
Mm.
first thing I wrote. And it was like, Then it was like off to the, as they say, off to the races from there for me.
Yeah. Okay. Look,
Yeah, that's
I'ma come
dope.
through with the ill content. Okay.
Yeah,
Now, do
Yeah.
you still have that comic, that first one? Is that like somewhere in your home to look
yeah,
back on?
yeah, yeah. It was called Gideon, and it was the first thing I ever wrote, and I think I wrote like 14 issues of it, and I produced maybe 4 out of that 14. So yeah, I still have it.
Wait, so is
Oh,
that still
dope.
available somewhere to get now? Or if it's not, can you like share in your stories or something? Some
Yeah,
sneak.
yeah. I actually plan on putting it all because I've got like I think 9 of those issues done out of the 14.
Hey.
So I keep compiling it and planning to one day just put it out.
Well, you know what our email address is here at Pink
Right?
Light.
Yes.
That's so cool. I love that, especially when we hear that like the people who've known forever that that's what they wanted to do. Like we've heard some crazy stories about like comics book stories that got written when people
Yeah.
were, like little kids and stuff like that. So that's very peak that you still have it, and we are looking forward to seeing some of that.
Yeah.
Stacey,
Definitely.
you.
My first my first comic publication work was and it was early 90s, and I was working for a local black operated newspaper called What's Up newspaper. It was WHAZUP, What's Up newspaper. And I was the art director, which means I did illustrations and some logo headers and things like that. And the publisher asked me if I wanted to create a comic strip, and I did it for a few issues. It was I don't know how many issues I did, but there are people who have those issues. Like this came out 30 years ago, over 30 years ago. I think I have every issue in my collection.
That's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like it's not the greatest work at all, but it's my origin. It definitely is my origin stuff. My first comic book was a comic book. I produced it in 2006, titled Abraham the Young Lion. It is still available on Indie Planet.
Okay.
And I produced a second issue that came out in 2008. And life took off, and it was really different. And I realized that creating single issues was not my format. I need to create books. I should make trade paperbacks. I should just make a graphic novel, complete the entire story, and be done. Because my life is there's so many other things that I do with my art practice. I'm an exhibition artist. I'm a professor.
You're a DJ.
I'm a DJ. I do a lot of other things. All of them I love. So I've learned that monthly books or single issue books is not a good format for me. And that book, Abraham the Young Lion, is a book I plan to finish, but I really wanted to create a proof of concept, prove to myself that I could create a book. And at that time, that was the format. Creating single issues was the format in the Black comics world. But the story was beyond my level of intelligence. I actually needed to, in order to finish the book, I needed to study a lot more about world history because of where I planned for the story to go. And I needed to understand how to complete that story and how it would be a successful and logical story that could happen. And I feel like I'm just getting to the point now where was it 15, almost 20 years later after dropping it, literally 20 years later this year after dropping that book, that I'm in a place of maturity and intelligence where I can complete that story. So, and that character has had a type of resurgence the independent Black comic book community has found that character, and they've been drawing it and bringing up this book and say, hey, what about this character? Anybody know about this character, the creator? So it's been nice to see Abraham the Young Lion come back into public eyesight.
Nice.
Yes, I love that. Just like knowing that you have to wait for when you are ready for the story to like happen. Like I
Mhm.
absolutely, I can't wait to read it now. I kind of want to like take a
Actually,
second.
I'll say this really quickly. I actually recently had a talk with John. He was like, he talked to me about the book, and I was like, you know what? I was just thinking I was going to talk to you about this. I was like, do you think this would be a good title for Megascope? John and I, that is my best friend and collaborator, right? For, I don't know, past like 15 years almost. And we often complete each other's thoughts. So he'll come to me with something that's like, I was actually about to call you like in 3 minutes to talk to you about that very same thing. So we've talked about Abraham the Young Lion maybe having a home at Megascope, because he did mention he wants to publish some superhero books.
He did, yeah. Ooh, that's gonna be exciting. But I feel like that's a great segue into talking about Across the Tracks, because if in the preface you both talk about how you both called John around the same time, talking about how you needed to write this story. So I guess I wanted to ask you to tell everybody, like, how did you guys decide to create Across the Tracks?
Oh, I think in some ways it's destiny or kismet. Because John always tells that story about how I was sending him an email, and he was saying, I think he was on the phone with Stacey at the same time, or just received a text, and we were talking about doing something for the centennial of this event, and I think at the time I had just written a treatment and a script for a show about Greenwood and everything that had happened, and within that space of time of both of us, like two ships in the night, talking to John, he goes, I just heard from Stacey, I just heard from you. Do you guys want to do a book together? And I was like, I had heard Stacey's name, but I'd never met Stacey before. And so I was like, sure, are you sure? And for me, I'm always like in the background of things. So I was just like, are you sure you want me? I know I was talking about this, but I was just talking about it like as an idea. And then John calls me up. He goes, yeah, so can you start writing something? Give me a pitch. And I was like, yeah, I'll write something as a pitch. And I think within 24, 48 hours, he goes, pitch approved. Can you start working on the script? And I was like, wait, what? and then just as we talk about this a lot, because I say kismet, because just as I started writing the script, COVID hit, and I had COVID, and I couldn't write. I've never really been sick any time in my life. I've never had the flu or anything, but this COVID thing had me feeling like I was gonna die. And so every morning I would wake up, and I could only write for like maybe 2 hours, and I would write from 9 to 11, and then I'd be out for the rest of the day. And somehow, in a fear pitch, I don't even remember writing this thing. I just remember turning it in and telling John, okay, I'm going to go back to bed. And then the next thing I know, COVID's over, and Stacey's reaching out to me, goes, hey, I want to talk about the script that you wrote, Across the Tracks. And I'm thinking, dude, I'm so sick. I'm still just getting over this thing. I don't want to talk about this. And so we get on the phone, and the first thing that amazed me about how things came together, as me and Stacey start talking, we're both talking about blues and jazz. We're not even talking about the story elements yet. We're just talking about music and how it makes us feel. And I'm like, yeah, I listened to this when I was writing this. And he goes, I'm listening to the same thing you're listening to. And so then it became like, wow, we're on a synergy that we didn't even realize we were on.
Yeah.
And I'll let Stacey pick it up from there.
No, this is why you need two people, or maybe sometimes three people, to tell a story. I don't even remember that conversation, but I believe having it, because I talk about what I listen to while I'm making work all the time. And it's like oftentimes what I'm listening to is documented in the style in which I'm creating work. So I can look at my work and say, oh, I remember I was listening to Jay Dilla when I made this. Or I was listening to John Coltrane when I made this, right?
Oh, that's
Yeah, and
wild.
so just a little bit about this, like everything that Alverne is talking about, this was in 2021, right? This was and it was the anniversary of the massacre is in June, the end of June, right?
Mhm.
And so we're having a conversation. The book was approved. Shouts out to John for even approaching his editor. I mean, approaching
Yes.
the editors about the book, because once he said, "Hey, this is the centennial of this massacre and the survival of the of this community," the publisher was like, "We have to do something." So I like to shout out the publisher because they didn't have to approve the project, right?
Yeah.
But the production of this book, and the reason I'm talking about the dates, we were well into the year, and we had to of 2021, we had to knock out this book, and we did 45 pages, 50 pages of this book. We knocked out in 45 days.
Mm,
And
Wow.
that's a
Alverne had
lot.
COVID, right? So he wrote this script with COVID. As soon as it was approved, the day the script was approved, I started working on it, drawing the first sketches,
Wow.
and laying it out. It was a whirlwind of productivity, and a lot of very fortunate circumstances. I was on leave, on a fellowship leave from my teaching responsibilities.
Mhm.
And so I had the time to produce this book. Had I been teaching a regular schedule, um, I don't know how I don't know how I would have produced that book. It was a lot of late nights and early mornings, penciling, inking. Um, I had color assistants. I hired a former shouts out to Alex Batchelor, who I was she was an undergrad when I was in grad school at the same school, SUNY Buffalo. I hired my son and another former student, Anthony Moncada. These folks helped to color the book and help produce this book while I was drawing and inking. And it was a lot of work. So much so that even during that time, I wish I could have
Right.
gone to Tulsa. Yeah. So in talking about the publication, like the some of the strategies that we used in that book, if you notice, it's a lot of flat color,
I
right?
was gonna ask about like the colors, talking to you about the color theory because there is a lot of like blues and purples and reds
Oh,
and
Stacey.
yeah, and I'm like the blue reminded me of like Haint blue, and I was like, oh
Ah,
my
yeah.
god,
Hmm.
but
So
like it's
This was my favorite page.
let me see. Oh yeah, that's what. Yeah. That's what mine said.
yes,
Yeah, yeah. So I will say this, right? And Albert, and I'll let you jump in too. Um, we're talking about the destruction of a Black affluent community because this community was forced into segregation, and as whenever we were segregated, we always prospered, right? More so than our neighboring white communities,
Yeah.
right? So statistically, there are some facts that say that money circulated up to 21 times before it left the community of Greenwood, right? Um, but in reference to the color, some of the things we ran across, and this is interesting when you're working with editors and they have input and they're thinking about things and how things, um, I wanted to make sure that there was an opulence to the color
Mm.
because history happened in color,
Yeah.
right? Some of the feedback initially was, oh, well, I was thinking the editorial feedback was, um, I think the book should be sepia tone. I was thinking it would be that. And I can understand, like, okay, it's historical. You want it to have that historical look like a parchment paper. However, it's important that the community who reads this book understands that our history happened in color,
And it
right?
wasn't that long ago.
And it wasn't that long
Right.
ago. It really wasn't that long ago. The last survivor of the Tulsa Race Massacre and rebuilding, right, just passed away, right, at a very, very old age of over 100 years old.
Yeah.
Some of the other things in reference to the color, I'll talk about that process as well. If you'll notice that the color is flat color. So the sky, the clouds have tone to them. And then the foregrounds have spots of highlight, right? But the middle ground is really flat color. And that was a style choice because we had to get this book done. And we had a month and a half, right, to get this book done. So there was, we had to figure out a style that we could knock out really quickly. And then another thing I will say about that also is in reference to some of those, that page you said was your favorite page. Thank you for that. I also wanted to find some ways of being creative and talking about this horrific event, right? Yeah. So how do we make this opulent and beautiful and something that children will want to read? It is a primer for educators and for parents to be able to approach this heavy subject matter with young people. You have to make it opulent for them, right? Yeah. You have to attract them. And another thing I wanted to do is another kind of problem we ran into that I had to think about solving was I could not travel to the Tulsa Historical Society to do research, right? I did not have time to do that. And I had very few resources. There are people that Alverne names in the book. I have no record of what they looked like. So I want to be accurate, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to hold off on these certain images until I get either I find the reference or the editor tells me, okay, you have to make up a likeness of this person, right? I think these things are important to talk about and think about because there were concessions that had to be made in order to celebrate this moment in history. I'll leave it there. I'm sure there'll be, Alverne, you might want to say something about that as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking about when I wrote the script, I think by the time we got to the version that me and you worked, I think that had been the third or fourth version I had written. And I remember like the first time the first script I wrote, it touched on Juneteenth. It was a whole different perspective. It was about a soldier who comes back to Tulsa right after the war, and he is dealing with the idea that, again, he's fought for this country and he's come back and now he's being treated as a second grade citizen. And his father has gone through slavery and it celebrates Juneteenth. And the father or the grandfather is teaching these kids in this community why Juneteenth is so important. And I think at the original one we had they were gonna be singing "Lift Every Voice and Sing," and I remember when we were in this editorial meeting or the notes that came back, somebody had asked, "Why are they singing this?" And I had to point out the significance of what it meant to African Americans to have this song and everything. And then when we eventually came back and I had to do it, I think I did, like I said, 3 or 4 different versions of the script, and I did them under like, I don't know, I was just writing like crazy and just handing stuff off. And then I remember when we got to this version or this idea of what we were going to do for Across the Tracks, I remember telling John that I didn't want to talk about, I know we had to show the riot and everything, but I didn't want to focus on that. I wanted to focus on the people, because at one point it was passed in a note that we should focus on the businesses. And I'm like, well, you can't have the businesses without the people. The businesses are secondary as to, to talk about the the greatness of Black Wall Street, but the people are what make it. So I remember when me and Stacey finally connected, that was the first thing we talked about. We are like, look, we got to make sure these people, whether we have pictures or not, we got to make sure that when readers read this, they feel these people, that they know and understand that every person in this book existed, every place in this book existed. It was real, and it's real. If you had grandparents that came from the South around that time, it's always been real for you in one way or another. You've heard these stories, but for a new generation of kids, and for especially a lot of Americans that had just watched Watchmen, and this was their first introduction. It was like, well, we're gonna give you a primer, as you say, and we're gonna show you and walk you around this beautiful part of the city that nobody has actually showcased. And that was really my goal for when we wrote this and put it together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, y'all did a beautiful job because that's the first thing a reader can take from it is just seeing the love that this community has and the love that built Greenwood. Like between the story and the art, like I know I call it a Hank blue, but like that blue just flows, just makes you think of the dreams and the hopes of that community and it growing. It's just absolutely stunning. Y'all did a fantastic job. I'm gonna stop fangirling.
Thank you.
Y'all did.
No. See, one thing we're not gonna do is minimize. We're definitely on the Pink Riot
It's
Comic Show.
so
We're gonna give
amazing.
flowers where they're due. One thing that
Yes.
really resonated me that you said, Alverne, was about someone making a note about wanting it to be about the businesses, and that really stood out to me because more often than not, like we see this every day today, watching what's happening with ICE and all of that stuff throughout the
Yeah.
US. People try to quantify our value in things and money and in what we're doing for other people and completely dismiss and dehumanize us. So
Yeah.
it was really important that you stood on that and made sure that the core of this story was the human experience so people understood the magnitude of the loss. It wasn't just a bunch of buildings and money that was lost. There was so
Yes.
many lives
People.
lost. There was so
Yes.
much community and so much effort and time and love and energy poured into building this from nothing, despite
Yes.
what was surrounding them the entirety of the time. And it's not something that you could just easily flip a coin and replace. That's like you're
Yeah.
talking about people's potential generational wealth that was snatched away from them, people's lives snatched away from them, people's livelihoods, their entire community. So I think that you rooting it in that human experience is really what's shown through here, and it
Yes.
makes a world of a difference that it was focused on their lives and their contributions and what they were trying to build for themselves more so than these hateful acts. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
Yeah.
you guys went about it in the right way for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
thank
Thank
you.
you. Uh,
I can see kids like reading this and going, "Oh my goodness, we had everything." And to grow up not seeing that, so many of us just not living in predominantly Black communities where the money stays in the community, like to really see this, like even I was stopped short where I was like, dang, that dollar circulated over 20 times. That's crazy because I know it's not even a quarter of that now.
Yeah.
no, it is statistically when we get paid, statistically, right? I believe it is a matter of hours before that money leaves our community. That means we got paid during the day, right? At lunchtime, we might have got our check at lunchtime. And then by the time we leave, we spend that money outside of our community, right?
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to point out about the book, I think this is important. It's important that we push back on editors when they make decisions that don't align with our visions for books.
Yeah.
If you notice on the cover of the book, there are Black people on the cover of the book. When I came up with sketches for the book, all of the cover ideas had Black people on it. One of the pushbacks from the editor was there should be no people on the book, right? And I, or to take the people off the book or whatever, right? They had a whole other idea for the cover, and I had to say something about that. I'm like, why would we take the Black people off
of the Black book,
of the cover of this book that is celebrating the Black people that were, right? You know what I mean? So sometimes, and I don't think that was malicious. I think that sometimes they're not thinking, right? They don't always understand what's important to Black people. So it's important that we speak up about this. Once we said this, they were like, oh my God, of course, absolutely we should do that, right? There was no pushback after that. But initially there was, and it is, right, Bree, you're making a face. Absolutely.
You being kind.
But yeah,
I think it's intentional.
If you ain't got nothing nice to say, you don't say nothing at all. But I think you're being super generous with that.
Yeah.
Well,
there's so much inherent bias that it's like you can't say that they weren't thinking, because they were thinking. The thought was protect me from my white guilt. I can't push this away.
Or from my white audience that won't accept this.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
and that could easily be the truth. I always want to give, sometimes I want to get a benefit of the doubt, right? Because sometimes I come my politics, I come with a sledgehammer, and that really could have just been a wiping off. It's like, oh, it didn't have to come that hard, right? I can just brush that off. But I think innately, right, a lot of these things are so deep within that just deeply ingrained. And I believe that you're absolutely right in that, right? Like looking at this face to face literally makes you confront it in a very particular way, right? Either you are, you have to pick a side, right? You can't be neutral. There is no neutrality, because neutrality is picking a side, right? So I'll leave it there. Once again, I am not the host of this wonderful show. I'm a professor. I professorate. I talk a lot. I'm done.
You're not alone, though. We get it.
Yeah, 100%. And the way that we've had many a guest who will go there, okay? And it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, we have you here because we value your perspective and your opinion. You know what I'm saying? The key don't stop. We're going to bring that regardless. But the power and the responsibility that came along with putting out this story, it necessitated that approach.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I was making a face because I'm terrible at hiding my faces. But usually, Keisha will back me up on this. Usually I am the silver lining gal, hope for the best out of everybody type of thing.
Better than me, yes.
Yeah. After two of us, that's usually me. But in this particular instance, it conjures a lot of different like memories and emotions for me specifically, because I remember when Watchmen came out and the shock and awe of all of the people, even some from our community, who were like, I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Why would they? And it's like, no, it wasn't made up. This is an actual thing that happened. And then having to like contend with that theory or that assumption, and also keep your composure and understand like this person isn't being willfully ignorant. It wasn't taught in school, in most schools. So if it wasn't brought to your attention from one secondary or tertiary origin, then you probably wouldn't know about this. But the part that made it the worst was people who still didn't want to believe it.
Yeah.
So it's like to me, this, while you guys did it in a very considerate way that would be easily digestible regardless of, you know, your background or your experience, hearing that you guys had to go to bat for how the story was going to be told, with what was going to be placed as the highest importance, and making sure that these people's legacy were represented in a way that was true to them and not just true to the more palatable version of the story is important.
Yeah, and I think me and Stacey were also on the same note about making sure, as African Americans, as Black people in the diaspora, that just because Greenwood was destroyed didn't mean that the people didn't go gracefully into the night. They didn't just sit there and watch it all burn. They fought back, and then I think me and Stacey really talked about that. We want to make sure that when, especially little Black girls and boys, and when they read this, they understand that was fighting us. That's always been fighting us as a people. And so it didn't just happen and things went away and it was destroyed. It's like, no, the resilience of those people, they had dreams, as you said, you know, and they fought for those dreams. And what was left and what was destroyed, it was like a phoenix. They still rose and they came back. And we wanted to make sure that we didn't just say, oh yeah, they rolled over and waited for this great storm to come and just watched everything burn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They immediately started rebuilding. Right.
Yeah.
One of the other things I want to point out in the book, Keisha, I know you have the book in front of you. There's can you open it up to that? There's the bombing page. Oh, Bree, you have it too. The page where the city is bombed. Let me see if that is, that page. So we talked about Watchmen. All right, both of those pages is great. I like that. That page that you were holding up, Keisha, was actually a still. I did a screenshot of Watchmen, that episode in Watchmen, and I drew over that as my reference.
Wow.
So I could put the contemporary history, right, that contemporary pop culture into this history that we're talking about, just so I could say that I did that and bring that in, right, as a talking point. Right. So
that's dope.
Yeah. Oh, that's tea. This, I assumed that, like, I also like, so this was my second.
I love that page
to show the resilience.
Yeah, we did not go quietly. We were prepared for their shenanigans to a certain degree, but
we had heat on us.
Yeah,
like we were defending our homes, like, because we know we just like we know now, right? We knew then,
advice.
We know
folks
now.
Listening, advice.
Everybody went quietly. The reason why this is my favorite page is because I thought that was such a creative way to show. So for context, for those who haven't read this, this is the part in the story where they're explaining that, you know, it was like, let's rally the folks to come and support this person who would potentially be lynched for no reason. Okay. So you see the men in the community all on the line, talking to each other, making it a network, and planning to go handle their business to support their own. So it's like, this is before anything even happened. And it's also like this, they're planning and preparing to be in place, but this is what community looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like they were going to plan to be in place to support that young brother, and just that, it's like, it didn't matter what it was like. Even come on, in the bonnet, like playing. We stopped what we were doing to get together to handle our business, because that was the core of everything that they represented, was community and supporting each other for their betterment. So it's just like, and the fact that it was cool, it was just like all swirly together. It could have been done any number of ways, but that was just I really
Stacey and his genius.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I did have fun drawing that page.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're being respectful of you guys' time, and we love getting Jesus. I can't talk. We love being able to talk about Across the Track specifically, but we love to also give you the opportunity to shameless plug yourselves. We'll be sharing the links where people can purchase these stories from some of our favorite Black-owned bookstores on Pink Riot throughout the course of the year as we do these interviews. But we'd love for you guys to share what are you working on right now, and give us your shameless plug. So anywhere we could find you, where we could buy your books, what else you got going on, what's coming up next, when's the next time you're going to be on the Pink Riot Comic Show, all of that.
I'll let you go first, Stacey.
All right, and I will keep it brief. I will not professoriate. All right. Right now, I am at the University of Maryland in my Airbnb, honestly, but at the University of Maryland, I am completing a residency with one of my collaborators, Cynthia Oliver. I am on her production team. She is a choreographer. We've been working together for about 8 years now. And she is producing her with some dancers, producing a 3-part or 3-piece dance work that is incredible. And I am the visual artist, the illustrator for this. And that will be, let's see, that starts touring in, I want to say in July, that starts touring. So I'm super excited. I'm working on that project right now. I am in my sabbatical. I'm on sabbatical right now. I'm on another academic leave. I am working on some really awesome animations. I'm back into my first love, which is animation, doing some tests using Procreate Dreams. And I am working on my Afrofuturism manuscript, which is going to be intense, but it's going to be looking at how we can think about and theorize a Black liberation government through historical Black culture and Afrofuturism as a framework for a government, a sustainable government for us. So we don't have to rely on this government that has never been ethical or moral toward us.
I would like a copy. We read books over here too.
These are art books. So I'm doing a lot of writing and theorization, but they will be art books. My favorite things to say is you gotta show people what the Afrofuture looks like. If you want them to activate it, you gotta show them what the Black liberated future looks like.
I was gonna say you see Keisha actively winding up as you describe that. So yeah.
I love it all.
How about you, Alverne?
For me, I got another graphic novel coming out from Megascope. Probably, I guess they're gonna announce it soon. But I can talk about it now. It's called Rhineland. It's the true story about a group of Black Germans who banded together and fought against Hitler as he was coming into power. And then I got a middle grade picture book called Evermore that's coming out around November of this year. And then I'm working on a series of crimantasy illustrated novellas that might be coming out through Megascope called The Apothecary Mysteries.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I have a live action digital sci-fi series that's coming out in May. Possibly, I think it's going to be on YouTube or one of these platforms, and that's called Pathways. It's a kind of about teaching kids about different career choices that they can make, and about this corporation that's kind of like in the vein of like an Amazon or a Tesla, and how they use AI and virtual reality to change the lives of different citizens and stuff like that. So I'm working on a lot of different things, and I'm trying to do something with Stacey again. I'm trying to convince him to come back to Greenwood.
Yeah.
Y'all busy. I like
right?
that.
All of these Pink Riot exclusives.
Right?
Like, give us all the tea.
Yes.
We will definitely be working together soon. I also have a graphic novel coming out at some point, I believe next year. It is an anthology through MIT Press.
Okay.
John is also a part of that creative team as well. and so much more coming. You asked where we could be found at. You can find me at stacyarobinson.com. All my socials are on there. I try to keep everything at Stacey A. Robinson, STACEYA Robinson, and reach out to me.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
I
for those
guess.
who don't, the description in the description, everybody's websites are there. So if you ain't
Okay,
catch
cool.
that, you can just look in the description right now.
All right, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm
Alverne,
at
what were you saying?
alvernerights.com. Simple.
Nice. Okay, so for our very last question, since your story is a part of the Megascope story, we'd love to hear from you. What does being a part of this Megascope mission mean to you?
I'll go first. I've been thinking about this, and I was just asked this question recently too, so I can. I've been thinking about it for a while. Megascope means to me, this is our Black imprint. This is where we get to voice ourselves, express ourselves, and tell our stories. I don't know of another publisher like this. Graphic novel imprint dealing with speculative fiction like this. Many of us are making pitches, right? And John needs help. I think John needs more editors. He needs more help at the. So this is something we need to push back on Abrams about, actually, making sure that they're keeping editors on staff, making sure that they're marketing the books, right? Marketing these awesome books.
Yeah.
The work is not. It needs to be pushed, right? Megascope means to me, this reminds me of some of the books that I'm reading right now. Right now, I'm reading some early Black science fiction. Black No More and Black
Yes.
Empire by George Schuyler. You mentioned Megascope, right? I read The Princess Steel by W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm reading right now. I am reading Blake or the Huts of America, and that was produced in the 1800s. Right. This is right. We're talking about early science fiction that goes back into the 1800s. Right. As these are. So I'm looking at this as the foundation of much of our foundation in reference to Afrofuturism. Some of these stories could be illustrated. Shouts out to my homeboy Tim Fielder. He is illustrating The Comet by W.E.B. Du Bois, right? That is early science fiction, right? Going back. Yeah. So I'm saying Megascope means to me like the Pittsburgh Courier that was publishing the serialized Black Empire and what was it? Black Empire, and I believe before Black Empire it was Black International. Right, and this is by George Schuyler, right, who wrote Black No More. This is some of the illest science fiction that I've ever read, and this came out in the 1930s, published by the Pittsburgh Courier, Black newspaper, right, and that was only some of the stuff that they were doing. This book was never Pittsburgh Courier never. Illustrated that, but George Schuyler always wanted Black International and Black Empire to be illustrated. I encourage all of us to read that. That's what Megascope to me means in this contemporary time. It is how we are theorizing what our futures look like outside of colonialism. We all need to be contributing to this. And whether we are reading it and buying it, or whether we are pitching stories and getting them published through Megascope, there is all work that we can do to contribute and make sure that this imprint does not fail.
Wow.
Yeah.
You got me in a loss for words in some ways.
Right.
And the only reason I say that,
the question, I'm like, did I answer the question?
Sitting there, I'm thinking home. And that's what Megascope feels like. And I was thinking the word that kept popping in my head was inclusive. But as you were talking, I kept going, man, that feels like home, and that's what Megascope feels like. And the reason I say that is because I remember pitching Rhineland, and I remember an agent saying, "Oh, I had to look this up because I didn't realize it was real." Even though on the first page it goes based on actual events, inspired by actual events. He goes, I didn't know there were black people in Germany. And it was just like, it was a smack in the face in some ways. Cause I'm like, I wrote this thing. I did all this research. I mapped it out. I'm showing you, and you still will deny that I exist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think for Megascope is that beacon in the night. It's a beacon that a lot of us needed at some point, and it's becoming the rise, the dawn of a new age kind of thing. And as Stacey said, this will I think in the next couple of years, Megascope will be home to so many other artists and writers for so many different reasons. And in the publishing world, where it is still very predominantly Caucasian, or and it's our stories are always told through someone else's lens. And
Yeah.
I work in publishing, educational publishing a lot. So I feel like Megascope is gonna be the Jet magazine of comics.
Mhm.
It's gonna be our
Like that.
Esquire, our essence.
Mhm.
And I think in the next couple of years, starting this year, probably for the next 5 years, whatever, we as creators and as a home, I think we're gonna be the penultimate when it comes to Eisners, when it comes to Stokers and every other award that you can think of in the literary term, or that sense, is because when you look at what Megascope is producing, it's what everybody else wants to produce but is afraid to produce. And
Mm.
a lot of it because they're afraid, because it's black voices. We've always been at the height of mainstream everything. Everything that is made or is copied from us in one way or another. And so I say that to say that I'm not shitting on anybody else's creativity. But what I am saying is that I think we've always been hungry and we've always been creative. And when you
Mhm.
put those two things together, you can only go up.
Hmm.
So I'll leave it at that.
Mhm.
Say that. Say
Yes.
Listen, I love that. I love both of your interpretations of Megascope and what it means to you, because I
Yes.
feel like you need that sort of balance to create the type of magic that you guys do. Honestly, I feel like that's why me and Keisha work so well, because we play off of each other and we both have a passion for it, but we just approach it differently to support each
Mhm.
other. So we love to see that
Yeah.
mirrored in other avenues, and we're rocking with Megascope, so we love that y'all are rocking with us. Thank y'all so much for sharing your
Yeah.
time with us and sharing your
Thank you.
experience and sharing across the tracks with us. If y'all don't already have your copy, run and go cop that.
Yes, please.
Run and go cop that. Okay? You need it
Yes.
in your library.
Check their websites, support them,
Facts.
all of that.
And we can't wait to have y'all back for these next
Yes.
projects that are coming in the future. So we hope that y'all had a good time enough to want to come back and kick it with us again.
Yes, it
We
was
will definitely be
amazing.
back for sure.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
everybody. It was great talking to you. So we will catch you in the next interview.
All right.
Later.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Yay!
Love it,
Oh,
love it,
yay.
love it.
That was awesome.
Come through,
Very
Bama,
amazing.
putting it on your Amazon wish list. Get it
Yes.
where you can.
Oh my goodness.
We're gonna
And
drop.
LT was talking about right. Pauline Hopkins of One Blood. Y'all need the list that Stacey gave out was phenomenal. Y'all need to read them. If you didn't catch the list, Nisi Shaw has this list of all the proto black sci-fi books and stories. You can check it online. Just put that in the search, and it'll all pop up. But Of One Blood is another one that everybody needs to read. Oh, that's exciting.
Yes. All the tea.